Yo, what's up guys, it's me Jake here, and today I'm going to be comparing 4 series that I consider peak fiction in their genre. Now, I'm going to be saying this real quick. I know I didn't upload really technically this week because it's a Sunday, but that means like I'm going to be uploading 2 videos this week technically. It was because of Thanksgiving and all that. I got really busy when I wanted to record and edit this video, so I'm really sorry about that. But I'm going to be posting another video later this week. I'm going to try to post every Thursday or Friday, either or. But if I do get busy, I'll probably post that Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. Either one of those 3 days. That 5-day span is probably where I'm going to be posting most of my videos. If I do post on a Tuesday or Wednesday, it's probably because I have something to do on that Thursday or Friday, and that's why it's like that. But to get started onto this is going to be me comparing my favorite 4 rom-com series, which I all have right here, which is going to be, not in order, of course, from this, but Call of the Night, Dangers in My Heart, Tonikawa, and Nagatoro. I don't know how I messed that one up. But those are my 4 favorite rom-coms as of late. I'm going to be comparing each one, like art, character, story, romance, comedy, all of that, and really kind of like making somewhat of a tier list out of these 4 in each category for today's video. So I hope you can get the gist of what I mean by that. And when I get started with this video, I'm going to give a little bit of a synopsis for each one of these series. So I'm just going to get straight into this and the synopsis of each series so you guys can get a little bit of what these are about. I'm also going to have like a little timestamp where it is, so you can skip this as well if you already know all of the synopsis of these series. I'll leave the little timestamps for the synopsises for the series themselves. So let's just get straight into this, and yeah, sorry for the long intro. So, first, Call of the Night. Basically, we follow this kid named Koya Mori that has insomnia and finds this girl named Nazuna, and Nazuna's not a normal girl. She actually asks to suck his blood on the first meeting, and why is that? It's because she's a vampire. Not only that, Ko gets interested within Nazuna, and in the end, tries to become a vampire. But how do you become a vampire? You have to fall in love with one. This is the story of how Koya Mori is trying to become a vampire through Nazuna herself. And yeah, that's a little bit of a synopsis of Call of the Night. If you don't know anything about Call of the Night, I'm not trying to spoil anything. This is all what happens in the first chapter, so that's a little bit of a synopsis that will not spoil you and is a little bit of a nice kind of intriguing one if you ask me. But yeah, on to the next synopsis. The Dangers in My Heart. Basically, you follow this kid named Mikio, who is this guy who is kind of emo and wants to kill his whole class and is a very dark kid. Then you have this girl named Yamada, who is a eating fanatic. She loves eating, but in the end, she's actually a model, and this is like around like really early high school, I think late junior high if I'm not mistaken. So basically, she always goes to the library at lunch to eat snacks and kind of hide away, and he always goes to read, and they kind of talk and actually become friends. It's a budding romance between these 2 people that you would never expect to even make eye contact with each other. Really wholesome, really great, and I highly suggest this one if you're into that kind of thing. It's really good, and it gives me a little bit of Nagatoro vibes, but not at the same time because there's no teasing involved, but it's really good, and I highly suggest this one. Talking about Miss Nagatoro, the most popular one out of all 4 of these. Basically, we follow this kid named Naoto, but he really just gets called Senpai because he's a 2nd year in high school, and this girl, Nagatoro, is a 1st year. And basically, it's kind of like this. Nagatoro finds out about Senpai through going to the library with a couple of her friends, and after that, she starts teasing the hell out of him. And not only starts teasing him, she starts, whenever she sees him, to start to tease him. And after a while, she actually starts to develop feelings for him, and vice versa. So it's kind of a little bit of a joking romance where it's a little bit of her teasing him, but not to the point of him wanting to like die or anything, because it isn't really bullying, it's more of a teasing kind of feel. So pretty wholesome, I would say. After the first kind of volume or 2, she is pretty bad in the first volume, I will admit. She's really annoying, but on to the next one, as that's kind of the best synopsis I can really give for Nagatoro without spoiling anything or saying anything weird, because I don't really know how to describe this one. Next up, Fly Me to the Moon, or Tonikawa. Basically, this kid named NASA, haha, his name is the space station, is a genius. Super genius. And he is trying to get into this really good high school until one day he sees this girl across the street named Tsukasa. But while he's trying to go talk to her, he actually gets hit by a truck, or so you believe. Tsukasa saves his life and pushes him out of the way and leaves him in really, really bad condition. And he goes up to her, and even in that really bad condition, chases after her, asks for her name, and says he likes her, and asks her out. But she says, "Only if you marry me." And after that, they never really see each other until Nasa is 18, which he then dropped out of high school and started working his butt off in convenience stores to try and find her, until one fated day where she knocks on the door. And that is Fly Me to the Moon. Now that I'm done with actually all the synopsises, let's get into the kind of tier list with everything, which I'm going to start off with art. Now, the art for all these series is kind of difficult to really actually grade because all of them have these kind of rom-com styles, but I'm going to go from like the most unique to the most generic in my opinion, and that's probably my regular tier list of my favorite to the least favorite anyway. Start that off at number 1. Call of the Night. I'll leave some really nice looking panels of these while I'm talking about them, but basically Call of the Night's art is fantastic. It's super unique. It has a kind of a gritty but clean feeling at the same time. It really does help emphasize all of the things they try to do. When Nazuna is blushing, it's really cute, but she also has this kind of like eerie vibe to her, which I really like. All the characters have sags under their eyes at most points because all the human characters are up at like 3 a.m. at all the time because they have insomnia or just can't sleep, and it really does have a nice kind of unique feel to it. Now, all these panels are probably going to be from the first volume or two, and non-spoilery panels, so don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything through these panels, but I really do like the art for Call of the Night, and I will say it's a really good one. Next up, I actually have The Dangers in My Heart. This is a really it is very generic in terms of the art style, but when they nail it, it gets really, really, really good. And I feel like the art kind of emphasizes a lot of things, as how the mangaka panel things is really interesting. I really like how this mangaka panels all of their art. I don't know if Norio Sakurai is actually a boy or girl. I'll probably put right here if it's a boy or girl. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name or if I don't know, but how they panel is really interesting, how they draw is really interesting, and it's a very kind of unique character style that I kind of get really heavy Moyo and Roji vibes from. If you've read Moyo and Roji, amazing series. I really liked Moyo and Roji, and it really gives me that kind of vibe in terms of character design, which I don't see often, and I really do like that fresh air of different character design, so really do very much enjoy this, and I will say it's a different reason why I have it here. It's more for the paneling and also the character design that I actually have it this high, but I will say it's super solid still. I would give Call of the Night's art, by the way, like a solid 8.7 out of 10, and this one I would probably give like an 8.3 out of 10, because I also do really like how this manga puts a lot of emphasis on their backgrounds as well. They really try for their backgrounds, which I don't see too often, but I really do like the art for The Dangers in My Heart. Next up, I would actually say is Nagatoro. Now, I know what you might be saying. I'm kind of going in row order right now, but that's just a coincidence for this. Nagatoro is kind of the same thing as Dangers in My Heart. I really like how Nanashi panels his work. It's a really interesting character design, but at times feels generic. I will admit that. His shading is fantastic. It's probably because his shading is very digital. It's like super obviously digital, but it looks really, really, really nice. I really like it. And I feel like this art could really benefit from being colored. I know a lot of art is, of course, going to be benefit by color, but I really feel like Nanashi's art, if it was colored, would be a 10 out of 10. As it is right now, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. The backgrounds can feel kind of stagnant at times, and the paneling feels a little generic, but is a pretty interesting way of paneling, so I do really like how Nanashi does it. And I will say the facial expressions is really what makes it get here. I really think that Nagatoro's facial expressions is just so unique compared to all the rest of these, so I'm going to say that his work in hentai definitely helped him here, because if you don't know, he was a doujin artist way before Nagatoro. Like, he actually was drawing doujins before Nagatoro, like a lot of them, and this is actually his first real work, real manga, not doujin. So I will say it definitely helped him with the facial expressions of what Nagatoro makes, but well, I do think that this is the main reason why Nagatoro is here, for the facial expressions. And last but not least, out of the art category, I'm gonna go with Tonikawa. Tonikawa just kind of feels bland at times. The backgrounds aren't fully too interesting. The character design is really basic. It feels not that interesting of a character design, but I still do like it. It's not something I would say is terrible, but it's not something I would say was amazing. So I'm gonna say it's a definite 6 out of 10 in terms of art, but that doesn't mean it's a bad series. Of course, if you're into art and you only like art, you might not want to read this, but I'm going to say it is pretty good in terms of art. It's just the shading is basically non-existent on the faces of characters. The kind of character design is really basic, and I don't really mind the paneling. The paneling is kind of just normal. But yeah, nothing too special about this art. But yeah, on to the next one. So, the next kind of category is going to be story. This was a really hard one, and I know I'm going to have this up here a lot. But in terms of story, this is the main one that's actually character-driven. Actually, I meant this is the main one that is story-driven. Sorry, I know I messed that one up. But this is the main one that actually has a real intangible story that you can kind of see progress as time goes on, and that's Call of the Night. The story for Call of the Night is phenomenal, and I think the twists and turns really, really help it. I'm going to say this is the only one that really has a story that you read chapter to chapter, and you can't just pick random chapters out and read them, because this has a flowing story, unlike the other ones, which are more episodic. So that's the only reason I have this up here, but the story is a solid 9 out of 10. Really do enjoy the story, and it is a very unique romance in terms of that, so really do highly suggest this. I'm going to say this a lot. If you like a story-driven rom-com, this is definitely one. It's really very out there, but a really good story at the same time, so just gotta say that. It's a really goddamn good story. Next up, this is purely off of one volume, Nagatoro. I think Nagatoro's story is great, even though it is episodic, but volume 6 is probably my favorite rom-com volume of all time, as that's the only volume that is a full-on story in terms of one full volume saying of story in place, instead of having a volume that's super episodic. Like, if you don't know what the anime did for Nagatoro, it actually went from volume 1 to volume 4 to volume 2 to volume 3, I think, to volume 7, or something around there, or volume 6. It went to volume 6 at the end of the season. So it kind of went all over the place because it's episodic, and it can do that. But I'm going to say this right now, that doesn't mean it's bad. I'm going to just say that volume 6 was just a phenomenal volume, and that carried it to this spot. Next up, I'm going to probably have to put Tonikawa. I would put Tonikawa. I think the story for Tonikawa is really good, and if it goes how I think it's going to go with the plot twist I think it's going to get, it's going to probably be number 2 at this point. But I'm going to say the story, even though episodic, it does have a kind of ongoing story, and it is really interesting as you keep reading, and it gets more and more story-based as the time goes on. So I'm going to say this right now, Tonikawa has a pretty good story. I forgot to actually rate Nagatoro's story, so I'm going to say Nagatoro's an 8.4 story. This is, I'm going to say, an 8.3 or 8.2. And then the final one, I'm probably going to rate an 8.1 or an 8.2, so not that much lower, only under Tonikawa. But that's Dangers in My Heart. I don't feel like this story is really a story, as I only read 3 volumes, and I'm going to say it's straight up episodic. There's nothing that is very story-based as time goes on with this. It just feels super episodic right now. And I hear volume 4, it is just a very, like, kind of story-driven volume, so I might really like that, but I'm going to have to put this last at 8.1 or 8.2 out of 10, so I'm just going to say that straight up. A really good story for all of these. I think all these have interesting and kind of unique stories in terms of rom-coms, but I'm gonna have to put this one lower, as I can see how this can be considered generic, and it does feel like Nagatoro at times with reversed roles, as Kyo is Nagatoro and Yamada is more like Senpai, even though there's no teasing involved. It's kind of like that messed up character and the really wholesome character, if you know what I mean. But yeah, that's it for this, and I'm going to go straight into romance as of the next one. So, the next one is romance, and I'm going to be actually starting off with Nagatoro. I think Nagatoro's romance is so good. I think it's so interesting seeing as Nagatoro develops and starts having more feelings rather than just wanting to tease this guy. And I like seeing that a lot. It's really wholesome and very interesting to see these characters develop over time and develop more feelings towards each other instead of, oh, I hate this person, and kind of wanting to hang out with them than rather be alone. And I think that's a really interesting kind of take on this high school kind of romance kind of setting, as it's very different in that kind of sense. But yeah, I really do like this series, and I do think that this romance kind of heavily carries Nagatoro, in my opinion. I think Nagatoro gets very heavily carried by this romance, as the characters really flow well together, and it's a really interesting kind of dynamic between them. But yeah, on to the number 2 pick for me, which has to be Tonikawa. Tonikawa's romance is just the driving force of the series. It's not in the comedy, in my opinion, but I'm gonna say this right now, I think how they start off as married is something super unique, and it really does kind of help the romance kind of bud, as they're already at the final stage of romance. They just have to kind of get used to each other, which is something I'm not used to actually reading. Is something that they're already dating or they're already married. It's just them having to kind of work each other out and see what the other person likes and doesn't like, and kind of get to know each other as time goes on. And I really like how that works. And Nasa and Tsukasa, I just merged the names together. Nasa and Tsukasa really flow well together, and as they develop together is really nice to see, and I really do love to see it. It's really unique and a nice dynamic between the two. And for the third one, let's hope I can get it backwards. I did. That's going to be Dangers in My Heart. This is a very unique romance, as Kyo doesn't even want to be in a romance, but does kind of fall for Yamada at the same time, which I really do think is interesting, as they do seem just like best friends, but both best friends kind of have feelings for each other, which is something that a lot of guys feel. They go through the friend zone, etc., but like, I really like how they take this take on it, as Yamada is this kind of model who's like everyone's crush, and Kyo is just this kid that everyone thinks is weird. And yet, they're in the strange, like, romance that you would never see. Like, a really short guy with a really tall girl. Really pretty girl with a very weird dude. It's, like, something that you don't usually see, but I think is really done well within Dangers in My Heart, and really is kind of perfect for this series. As if it was a normal romance, I don't think this would be nearly as funny or nearly as great as it is. I notice I haven't been rating these romances. God dang. I'm going to put the ratings at the end of each one, and I'm just going to say, Nagatoro, 9.5 out of 10. Tonikawa, 9.3. This, I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. And now I'm going to go on to my final one, Call of the Night. The romance isn't the main part in Call of the Night. It is definitely the story that is the thing that drives it. The romance is still really good, I'm going to be honest. It's still a solid 8.4 out of 10. But of course, as you notice, like I think I said 9.1 to 8.4, that is a still 0.7 rating difference. That's because the romance isn't superly heavily focused in this. Yes, he does have to fall in love with Nazuna to become a vampire for Ko, but it's not forced upon. It's just slightly ever so growing onto each other. It's nothing insane, but it's definitely there. So I'm definitely going to say it's a really nice, wholesome-y kind of romance. It's not super wholesome, but it is, because Nazuna's humor is kind of out there, but I'm going to say it is definitely a good one. It's not something that you'd say, oh, it's a terrible romance, but it is definitely not the best romance out there. Okay, so comedy. This one is easily won by Dangers in My Heart. There's no way that any of the other ones actually win it. This is easily a 9.8 out of 10. I'm gonna say this is probably one of the funniest manga I've read. Just their humor, it's just so middle school that it's so funny. Like, how they kind of work in these, like, words that you just don't kind of expect to laugh at, but do, is just so funny. And Nario, the mangaka for this, Nario Sakurai, really implements it very well. I think he does, or she does, sorry. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, like I said earlier. They do it so funny, and they even make jokes in their own manga where they'll say the word, and then they'll have, like, ha-ha at the top of the bubble. Like, it's just great to see that they're having fun writing, and when the mangaka is having fun writing, it just makes it that much more interesting to actually read, and I really feel like they actually really enjoy writing the series, and that's what's making it so funny. I think it's an amazing comedy, and I think you should definitely read it if you want a more comedy-centric rom-com that has a really good comedy, really good romance at the same time, sorry. I'm gonna not, like, cut most of this out, I'm gonna keep it kind of not that much edited, so yeah, don't just leave that in, but straight up, if you want a comedy-centric but really good romance rom-com, definitely go with Dangers in My Heart. I hope it does get an anime soon. I'll be very honest here, if it doesn't get an anime soon, I'm gonna be very sad. But next up, Call of the Night. This has kind of the same humor as Dangers in My Heart, but a little different, as it's a little less middle school and a little more high school kind of. So I'm gonna say this is definitely a 9.3 out of 10 for me. I think the humor is really good. It does usually hit. I didn't think so in the first volume, but as time went on, more characters got introduced. The comedy got way more better and better. So I'm going to say, definitely really did enjoy this comedy. I definitely think it's better than the other two, because the other two don't try to make you laugh as much. But I'm going to say, this is a really good comedy, and I really do like how they actually put it into the series. Next up has to be Tonikawa. If you don't know the Tonikawa's comedy, oh my god, it's just basically references. It's just straight up references, and instead of actually saying like berserk, it'll be like berserk, and it'll be like a little O instead of the E. Stuff like that. They'll change one letter in the word, and you can still read what it is. It's just straight references, and I really think it's funny. I think the references are really well placed and not forced. Like some series have really forced references, but Tonikawa's references feel really genuine and very funny at times, as it's more of like, oh yeah, have you not watched Attack on Titan? Wow, you're really weird. Stuff like that. Like, it's not forced, but it's kind of funny. So definitely do like this. I would give the comedy an 8.8 out of 10, I would say. I would say pretty confidently like an 8.8 out of 10. And lastly, Nagatoro. I think Nagatoro is probably the weakest in terms of comedy out of all of these, but it's not bad. I would still give the comedy like an 8.2. It's just purely because the first 2 or 3 volumes, I don't really think I laughed much, because I really did not like Nagatoro until she started actually developing and kind of gaining feelings for Senpai or Naoto. So I really do think that that's the main reason, and I also don't really think Nagatoro is the funny part. It's actually her friends that are mainly funny, but I do think the facial expressions Nagatoro makes sometimes are really funny, so I'm gonna say that. But yeah, I can't really say much. I think this is probably the weakest comedy out of all of them. Now, on to, I think, the second to last category, which is going to be characters. And if you don't know my opinion on the characters, number 1 has to be Call of the Night. The characters drive the story, and the story is amazing, so I have to say the characters are phenomenal. The characters in the series are just amazing. I think the characters really carry the story so much. I'm going to say Ko and Nazuna are probably my favorite characters in all of these series combined. And also the side cast is really interesting, and development of the side cast is definitely the best in Call of the Night rather than any of these other ones, because the other ones develop the main characters but not the side cast, while Call of the Night tries to develop the whole cast as they are the kind of driving force of the series. So I will say the characters definitely have to go to Call of the Night. I'd give the cast around an 8.9 out of 10, because I don't think any of these have insane above 9 characters, but they definitely do have some pretty damn good characters. Next up, you know what? I'm gonna give it to Dangers of My Heart. I think the characters aren't really developed much, but the side characters are really unique and very funny to see. The comedy that these characters exude is really great, and I really love seeing the dynamic of this class, and I really do like seeing the other characters within this class, like Yamada's friends, and how they are compared to the boys in the class. It just seems like a really like either 7th, 8th grade / maybe 9th grade kind of vibe, and it just really gives off a funny vibe, because if you ever see like those kind of young kids outside of being in those grades, it kind of just gives you nostalgia and is kind of funny. So I will say it does give you that vibe, and it is quite a funny thing. Even though some of you might think that's kind of cringe, I do think it is a nice heartwarming kind of cast that is really funny and tries just having middle school humor, to be honest, which I really do like. So I'm going to give this cast probably an 8.6 out of 10. Solid 8.6. Next up, Nagatoro. I think Nagatoro's friends are developed enough, and I think that the Nagatoro cast is pretty interesting. I think Nagatoro's friends and the main character are the best characters. Nagatoro is getting, like, growing on me rapidly. I think she's super funny sometimes, but also not funny at all sometimes. Also the class, not the class president, the art club president, just a great character. She's so funny, and she just comes out of nowhere. She's so stoic, but it's just like the perfect opposite of Nagatoro. A tall girl that's has a larger breast, while Nagatoro is a shorter girl with smaller breast. It just really fits the vibe, and it's a really just funny, wholesome cast that I really do enjoy. So I'm gonna give this one like a 8.3 out of 10. And Tonikawa, as Tonikawa doesn't really have much of an outside cast, I can't really say much. We only have a few characters on the outside cast that we don't really see as much as the main characters in Tsukasa and Nasa. We don't really see the others, which just kind of drags the kind of rating for this quite down quite a bit. So I can't really say anything. I'll give it a solid 7.8 out of 10, as the characters just don't have many side characters. There's just like no side characters in the series, so I can't really rate them, and there's no development in side characters because there is none. So I'm gonna say that it's kind of rough for them, but not much you can do. And I'm gonna say they're still a solid cast, it's just nothing insane, you know. Next up, covers. Covers, This is an easy one. This is my last kind of topic for this whole video, but covers. First place, Call of the Night. I think Call of the Night has the best covers, and the covers coming up are just phenomenal. I just really like this art style. As you can tell, I did rate the art style really highly earlier on in this video, but I think the covers really do suit the volumes themselves, and it is a really, really good way to have these series. It's a really nice kind of cover design and cover aspect for it, so I really do like it. Next up is going to be The Dangers in My Heart. For Call of the Night, I'm going to rate that a 9 out of 10. Call of the Night, I'm going to give it an 8.9 out of 10. And I just think that having Naoda in different poses with Kyo, it's just really wholesome, and I really like seeing it. And seeing how these kind of covers have them kind of get closer and closer as time goes on, it's really wholesome. I really do like these cover designs, even though I might just have thought a little too far into it as the characters get closer together and stuff. I just really like it. And the more time goes on, the closer they get, stuff like that. I really like this this art style by this manga, so I'm gonna put it up here. But the covers is one of the main reasons I bought this series. That are so good. So yeah, and they're so wholesome. But I'm gonna give these an 8.9 out of 10. Then I'm going to probably say Tonikawa. I'm gonna say Tonikawa mainly for the ones we're going to be getting in the future. So I'm gonna say probably a solid 8.5 for these. But these covers I do really like in general as well. But I just do think the future covers of this series are just phenomenal. And I really do like the covers with Tsukasa on it, as all of them do. But really kind of, they're different. Like, they have so many covers with the same girl, but she's in such different outfits and such different poses on each cover. Other than this one, I think Volume 4, where she's in the pool, they have like the same outfit and kind of same pose. But I think it's a really interesting kind of cover design for all these, and I really do like these covers, so I can't say much. Other than that, I think it's a solid, I think I said 8.4 out of 10. So yeah, solid 8.4 out of 10 for me. And last but not least, I'm gonna say Nagatoro. I think Nagatoro has pretty basic covers, but I do like them. I'm also kind of putting spines on here as well. Like, I think covers and spine go hand in hand, but I think all these have really good spines, so I can't really say much. But I like the changing colors for all the covers and all the different outfits and poses Nagatoro's in for all the covers. Kind of just feels basic to me. It's just like the same thing over and over again, just different poses. Only reason it's this low, so I can't really say much. I do really like Nagatoro's cover sometimes. I also don't like Nagatoro's cover sometimes, like this one. I really don't like Volume 8's cover. But yeah, I'm going to give this one a solid 8.1 for Nagatoro. But that's it. And like I said, I'm going to make more long-form videos, as this one is like going to probably be like 25 minutes. I'm going to make more long-form videos, as I'm only uploading once a week. So I hope you guys do enjoy that, and I hope you guys like the longer kind of videos from me. And I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope I see you guys next time. Peace!